the next stage for space is commercial applications of space.
Yeah.
So we've got the political drive for the space race, we have the research drive for these big collaborative research projects, but it's actually businesses that are driving development in the space sector in the future.
But the UK is still very much committed to human spaceflight as well. So they've recommitted funding and resources for human spaceflight for the next 5 years. So that means that potentially we're looking at a second flight for Tim Peake as well. And I think he's been such an amazing ambassador for space and really highlighting the industry that the UK has that maybe not everyone knew about prior to his flight. It's a growing industry as well. You know, it's valued at £12 billion, but it's absolutely growing. I think space is a fantastic way to get people into the STEM subjects. That's why Tim Peake's mission was so important, because it's been estimated that during his mission, through the different outreach activities, educational activities that he did, you know, we've got 1 million British school kids have been reached by his mission. And he's just, we see it here at Centre, he's a rock star.
Looking up at the stars and seeing the stars in the sky is for a lot of people going to be their first ever kind of, wow, what's that? Why is that moment? So open and available to anybody as a child. You know, you don't have to go anywhere special to look up and see stars and go, what on earth are they? Or actually, what out of earth are they? You know? I think this is something that you'll find shared across physicists and engineers particularly. It's wanting to know how stuff works. Why does that happen? Yeah, that's cool, but why does it happen? And, you know, physics, until you understand it, may as well be magic in some cases. You know, it's, oh, there's this effect, and out of nowhere there's light. How is that happening? And it's the finding out and understanding, and then realising once you get one bit, you can apply that to other areas. And so physics being cool, and, you know, as a kid I loved building stuff out of Meccano and just experimenting in general. And then, as you said earlier on, space is awesome.
So actually maths and the maths in physics, you can argue certain things, but the laws of physics remain the same. And there is
an answer to every question.
Exactly. There's actually, to me, there's something beautiful about physics in that it is the closest we can get to really describing things that are around us. You know, I could describe the colour of the sky in a number of different ways, but actually we can define it to a little window of wavelengths, and that is much more accurate than me saying it is a shimmering blue or it is a, you know.
To make you smile, somewhere in these eyes, I'm on your side.
I think social factors affect the numbers of women in science and engineering, and the reason I think it is social factors is because the disparity in terms of numbers of far more men going into science and engineering is actually not a universal problem. If it was innate gender traits, I think you'd find in every country in the world more men do science and engineering and less women do science and engineering. Actually, it's a particularly European, Western European and North American problems. So I think that it is external factors rather than some innate ability. I don't think that any male is more attuned to physics than any female.
That's true. There was that BBC report that said that by 6 years old, girls already think of boys as being more enterprising and more innovative than girls. Now, if that's getting built into you at 6 years old,
you can't really have your own opinion at 6, can you?
So it's coming from somewhere, and unfortunately, you know, if you're going to, fortunately, if you're going to be a physicist or an engineer, you need to be quite innovative. You need to think around things. You need to have that thinking out of the box, being able to see the big picture thing. And if you're by 6 years old already thinking you might not be as good as the boys at doing that, it's definitely going to have an effect on whether you are as soon as you hit secondary school thinking of a career in the sciences. Definitely it's got nothing to do, in my opinion, with trades. I think it's all external. I think within the industry, the biases aren't there as much as they perhaps were in the past.
I think it is getting better, but I think it's getting better through work.
Yes.
Through effort from men and women involved in the field, and thanks to some trailblazers as well.
It's quite a good mix and good balance of men and women now at that kind of early careers level. It's at the higher managerial levels and the higher research posts where you still get a disproportionality between male and female split.
I had access to scholarships that were only available to women studying physics. There's still work to be done, but it was just interesting to be going through that actually any distinction that there's been on me as a woman in physics has been as a benefit.
The question about ethnic minorities is an interesting one as well, because it's something that you sometimes find that there are ethnic or religious or other communities who maybe don't see the value of studying certain subjects, and then you will find that there are youngsters who want to push against the boundaries of what their parents expect. And I think that is a story as old as time. That's the Billy Elliot story, but I think it's true in the sciences to an extent. The representation of ethnic minorities in the space sector in the UK, I would say, probably proportionally underrepresented. And I have also had really interesting conversations about how we increase representation or uptake by underrepresented groups in rooms where I have been the diversity in the room. And that's always an interesting thing to say, because I've also got to say, just because I am female and I am mixed race, doesn't mean that I speak therefore for all women or all ethnic minorities.
Not just people already invested in space sciences. And I think, that's really encouraging. I think we're seeing a growing public interest in space in general, so that ties into going back to the Apollo lab. But also, this interest in telling the hidden stories is really encouraging. So hopefully we'll see a lot more of these cases coming out and then people realising what an amazing contribution men and women make to sciences throughout the world.
There's one lady that was involved with the Apollo missions, a lady called Margaret Hamilton, who was the director of the group at MIT, who coded the computers that allowed the landing of the lunar module. When I talk, there's a talk I do for young people where I like to have a picture. It's the famous picture of Neil Armstrong stood on the moon, and a picture of Margaret Hamilton. She's quite a petite lady and quite young in that photo, and she stood next to what looked like a stack of books. That stack of books is the code of the computers that her team coded, and that computing capability is a fraction of what you carry around in your pocket nowadays.
It's getting there.
I hope that we get to hear more stories like this story, because of the interest that it has generated, and also that it brings some of the science story to a wider public as well. I think that would be really nice, a nice outcome.
Everything and anything to do with Tim Peake's Principia mission. Tim to actually film experiments for us that we designed from an educational standpoint. So they're physics demonstrations, that are designed to showcase what's different in orbit to on Earth and use that to unpick the science behind it. So from my point of view, it's been very much a year and a half of human spaceflight. It's been very human spaceflight orientated.
World go round. Were you ever lost? Was she ever found? Somewhere in these eyes.
We're starting to see some quite prominent female scientists from a kind of science communication point coming out, some people who are coming out to talk about their research as an expert. People from Monica Green to Maggie Adair-Pocock to Lucy Green. We're starting to get a lot of women who are at the forefront of their research and their careers, who are now being given that legitimacy in that role. The thin line that you have to tread between removing barriers, but not, just making up the numbers for the sake of it as a ticking exercise.
To set the barriers in front of someone else.
Exactly. And if there were an easy solution, it would have been done by now. There's a reason that these conversations are still going on. But having positive role models, having more access to things at a younger age, and just getting rid of some of the gender issues at a much younger age as well, taking away some of the stereotyping is the biggest step in my opinion.
I think there should be more opportunities for young people to actually question how do we do things. So satellite navigation, how is there a satellite that knows where I am?
It has nothing to do with minorities or gender or anything like that. The really important thing is, if you want to have a generation of good scientists, good mathematicians, good engineers, then that needs to be an inquiring generation. It needs to be a generation of people who ask questions and who are taught how to find out answers.
Yes.
Who are taught how to gain access to the knowledge that they need, to the information that they need, without just being told it by the source, whether it's their teacher, whether it's their parents.
I think teaching science to everyone, regardless of whether they're going to actually go into a career, is so important, because just that sort of scientific method and critical thinking, questioning things, it's necessary when you're going to go and vote on an issue. It's necessary when you're,
giving you the tools to accept the fact that you will be wrong.
Yeah.
When you
abandon your theory when it's just
when you do an experiment, you make a prediction based on the knowledge that you have at that time. You do your experiment. Oh, look, the answer is something different. Why is that? Now I understand. I was wrong. Hey ho, now I know something new.
I do think that education is the way to make sure that, or to give people an opportunity to either make things better for themselves or better for society around them.